Obviously, after last week, um, I thought we as a athletic department and university in general, made the right call with the postponement of the Arkansas State game. You know, guys wanted to play, we wanted to play, but obviously health and safety come first. And I think that was the right decision for our football team and everybody involved at the time. As we look forward, we got Central Florida sitting right here in front of us. They have played extremely well. I mean, beat Georgia Tech, beat East Carolina. They're hitting on all cylinders. They got a ton of guys back on defense, a ton of guys back offensively. I think it's 8-7, something like that. Obviously, this program has been, especially over the last 3 or more years, I think they've only lost like 4 ball games in that span. Now, I know we were fortunate enough to be one of those last year, but this is going to be an exciting game. They are explosive offensively. They play with a lot of tempo. They've got a lot of weapons. They spread the ball around. Gabriel is playing exceptionally well. If you look at them defensively, they changed up some things, but they got guys running around everywhere. They play a lot of man coverage. You got to do a good job of picking your spots when you're wanting to hit some things, and you've got to find a way to get some running game going, and they are difficult to run the football against. So we know we got our hands full, got to go on the road to their place. I know it will. I think they are letting at least some fans in, so that place is always loud no matter what is in it. So it'll be a great test for us, another top 11 team right here, and looking forward to the opportunity to get back on the field and have the chance to compete.
So what did last week look like for you, Philip, when, midweek you find out that you're no longer preparing for Arkansas State? And I don't know how long it takes you to reverse course, or if you use that time, for something different even than just UCF.
Yeah, so if I'm thinking back right now, my days are all running together a little bit. So don't hold me to the actual dates. But I think that was Wednesday when it came out. We had a little bit of a team meeting, kind of broke the information and the news to them. We still practiced that day, but we reduced our practice down quite a bit because, majority or half of that practice is all Arkansas State, and that's kind of out the window. So kind of reduced it back down, did a little more against each other from that standpoint. And then that evening, coaches, we all were here pretty late, starting to game plan, at least try to get some nuts and bolts of what you could kind of install for the next practice, which happened on Thursday. So we practiced again on Thursday, had another practice on Friday, and then they came up and lifted and did some things on Saturday, and then we had a normal Sunday. So we were able to kind of get a little bit ahead from that standpoint, but obviously you're switching gears pretty quick and you're just continuing to kind of game plan as you go along. You don't have your normal weekend that you prepare for. So it was a little bit different, but obviously gave us a little bit more time.
And, it's impossible to speak for every player. I mean, guys have different opinions about things, but how do you think the guys took it? Because it has been so weird. You had the long pause, which not everybody's had to deal with. And then the first game was pushed back, and then you finally play one, and there's some good things that you probably want to build on. And you, in a sense, hit pause again, not in the same way. But how do you think the guys responded to all of that?
Well, I mean, they understood, right? And making decisions to make sure that their health and safety were the number one priority. They understood that and respected that, but obviously disappointed, just like we all were. We were ready to get back on the field and get an opportunity to continue to get better, continue to improve, continue to build on what you've done. And that part of it's tough. So, I mean, obviously they're tired of going against each other. And, to get in game shape, you need to play games. And we know we need that game experience to continue to develop. And, obviously our conference is extremely difficult, as it has been over the last several years. And, as you're looking at this week, I mean, the first week we played the number 11. Now we're playing the number 11 again. I think, Cincinnati's sitting here at 15. I mean, you want to have more games under your belt to prepare yourself for these top flight type opponents that you got in front of you, and you've got to be able to really operate at a high level. You can't go in there and misfire. You can't go in there and have self-inflicted penalties, and those things come with reps and being involved in competition.
You mentioned needing that game experience. Do you have a good feel for where you guys are when you've played only one game?
I mean, if I'm being truthful, not completely, right? I mean, I thought obviously defensively we played really well the other day. Offensively we were not consistent enough, but I think we're a better football team than what we showed the other day. But we've got to go out on the field and do it. And so those games are the ones that kind of get you prepared for every week. And so, we're continuing to kind of find out who we are, but again, we're one game into it, and there's not enough true history yet to kind of show how that's going to kind of manifest itself.
First off, did you get a haircut?
I did.
How's that feel?
Light. And probably the wrong time, right? Because it got cool all of a sudden. That would have been a nice to still have all the hair, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was about time to clean it back up. I don't know. Players haven't seen it really yet, so we'll see what they think. But I don't know how happy Mama was when I got there.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't know what Mom thought. I wasn't sure. All right, well, I'll get back to serious now. Sorry. You hit on that week that you guys get to play OSU. You said you guys were a little behind practice-wise. And then just a few minutes ago, you said you felt like you were getting ahead. Do you feel like you're back to where you should be practice-wise for this time of the season, or do you still feel like you're catching up?
Well, I mean, you can't get back to time that when I say ahead, I think, we got a couple of days ahead on Central Florida from a game plan standpoint. As far as being up to par, obviously we're still quite a bit behind because we played one game, right? And we've had more practice time without stoppages, which has been really, really good. And I've been really pleased about that side of it. But again, you got to play games. And at this point, I mean, we would normally be into game number 5. And, you can't get that back. So that part of it, we're definitely behind. I mean, obviously they're 2 games into it and got 2 really good wins underneath their belt. And that provides you confidence and momentum. For us, you played a week and then you have a week off, and now, you're trying to regenerate that. So now we're in better shape than some people. I mean, you look at U of H, they hadn't played a game yet, and there's others that are kind of fallen into that I don't know, fault of their own or the opponent, but at least we've gotten one game into it, and obviously we're going to get game 2 into it now.
You guys using last year's film quite a bit from last year's game with these guys? I know you said they have a bunch of returning guys from that team. Do you feel like that's pretty good film to use?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're looking at it just like they're looking at it, right? The flip side of it is they're doing some different things defensively, at least in the first 2 ball games that they probably had in their system, but weren't using it quite as extensively as they are now. So obviously that changes a little bit. They lost a couple of personnel guys that they've got to replace. And so, but as you look at them up front, I mean, they've got basically all of them cats back, and they can play defensively, I'm talking about. And so they got their 2 safeties back, and both of those guys are really experienced players. So, I think maybe one of their best, if not their best player on defense is 31. And he's a guy that I think will play on Sundays. And he's kind of a combination guy, kind of a corner, but he plays inside, and they do a lot with him. And I think he's a special player, no doubt. And then you look at him offensively, I don't think they've changed as much offensively. They're going to play with tempo. They're going to run the zone. They're going to run the zone league. They're going to RPO off of that, and they're going to take their shots down the field and try to keep spreading the ball around. So they've got a lot of weapons, and they do a good job of taking advantage of that. And you've got to get them behind the chains if you're going to have a chance.
Philip, one big reason you guys were able to, hold them down to 31 points last year and win that game was the pressure on the quarterback was really good. Travis was a big part of that. Without Travis, I didn't know what it looked like in week one and was really impressed with the way you guys were able to get pressure. I think you had almost half as many sacks as you had all of last year, which is kind of crazy to think about without him. So maybe speak to that, in two parts. The way your defensive front, I guess, kind of, the linebackers as well who were blitzing, the way they were able to get pressure in week one and how important that is, against Gabriel. You can't just let him stand back there all day, obviously.
Obviously, and they do a really good job of, ball comes out of his hands pretty quick most of the time, but, you've got to do a good job of taking away his first option. And I think we did a good job of that against Oklahoma State, where taking away read number one, where the ball's not coming out, and then allowing guys to get pressure and then get him off of his mark was obviously beneficial for us in week one. We're going to have to create some ways to be able to continue to do that with Gabriel. I mean, he runs well. I don't think he's going to, win the 100-yard dash, but he's going to create plays with his feet, be able to scramble around, buy time. His eyes are going to be down the field, and he's going to be looking for open receivers, and that's kind of his deal. But we've got to be able to get pressure on him, take away option number one, and make him have to go through progressions and give us an opportunity to get pressure. And to do that, you got to do a great job versus the run to get them out of that sink of just being able to hand it anytime they want to and go make 5 yards, right? Anytime you're able to do that, you're able to stay ahead of the chains. You're able to play with a lot of tempo, and you can take shots whenever you want to, because if you end up 2nd and 10, hey, I'm handing the ball back off. I'm getting to 3rd and makeable or 3rd and short if I don't pick it up, and I'm in a good situation. So we got to do a good job versus the run. We got to get pressure on the quarterback, and we got to take away read number one, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on our secondary to do that. But obviously, I feel like we have some guys back there with some experience that have been in big games that can handle that.
Are they – I know you said it a few weeks ago that you guys have undergone some changes to your offense, but are they more like you guys than anybody you see? I mean, is that offense pretty familiar, or, are there maybe some things I'm not aware of that are pretty key differences?
No, I think really they are probably the most similar to us as anybody. And, they do a really good job with their tempo and speed. And they've got a lot of weapons, and they got a guy pulling the trigger back there that's making good decisions and being accurate with the football. So they've got a good combination of things. We've got to do a good job of keeping him guessing a little bit, not allowing him to be comfortable, because once he gets comfortable, I mean, you saw it in the East Carolina game. It was kind of back and forth there a little bit early, and, East Carolina had 3 turnovers there and played some pretty good defense. And then all of a sudden, once it got hot, it started rolling, and you let him get confidence, and he starts really, really being accurate with the football. Receivers are running wide open, and you just can't allow that part to happen. You've got to be physical, and you've got to put pressure on them and keep them behind the chains and eliminate as much as you can. You're not going to eliminate every big play. They're going to have big plays, right? But you've got to eliminate the majority of those big plays and keep them having to earn yards.
I think last week, I don't know, I keep losing track of time. You had mentioned that Zach hadn't gotten a lot of practice before leading up to the OSU game. Now he's had pretty much 2 full weeks, I guess, to kind of get ready and get some more chemistry built and get that timing back. Are you seeing that at all in practice? Are you seeing a difference from him getting some more reps now?
Yeah, I think obviously anytime. I mean, he was, like I said, in quarantine for 14 days. So, being able to get back with those receivers, get back in the flow of things, he was zooming into meetings and doing all of that part of it, but nothing replaced the actual reps, as when you get out there with the receivers and just feeling things, right? Like pressure's coming here, being able to slide in the pocket and do this and buy yourself another half a second, which can be a huge difference in the flow of a play. And, being able to get us into a good play out of this look and into another look. And some of those things just take reps. So he's had a good last week. And then obviously we've got this week coming up, and we need to continue to stay on that path. And and continue to get good work in and allow those receivers opportunities because, obviously they play a lot of man coverage. And so we've got to be able to get off man coverage, and we've got to be accurate with the football. And then when you get into those open spaces, you got to be able to take advantage of it.
Coach, it's kind of been a roller coaster for your running back group, with Shamari going down. How are they gelling right now with this extra, I guess, week and a half of practice getting ready for UCF? And what are you seeing out of the UCF front to stop them?
Yeah, so they're really based out of a 4-2-5 type of look. Now their extra WB is really number 31, who's really a corner in my opinion. I think they play with 3 corners and 2 safeties, but he does a good job of mixing some things up. But they do a lot of movement with their front. They're playing a little bit more odd look this year at certain times and trying to mix some things up. But they're long, they're big, they're athletic, they can all run. As far as our running backs go in particular, obviously, Shamari and Johansi both had their surgeries at the end of last week, and both went well. So that's a blessing, and they're on the road to recovery. But the rest of those running backs, they've had a good last week. They've got another one coming up. I think the reps that they've been getting, they've shown promise in those. We just got to continue to keep gelling a little bit with the offensive line and with them, kind of knowing where things are going to hit. We missed a couple of things the other day that would have kept some drives alive, that could have allowed some things to happen. And so, again, that comes with experience and reps, and they're getting more of that now, but we need still more game time experience with them.
I asked you about Allie Green last week, and watching him go against Tylan Wallace. And, sometimes there just is no defense for a perfect pass. And Gabriel's certainly capable of some of those. But how much better do you feel going into a matchup like this? Because it can get away from you quickly with that offense. When you've got a corner, and not just Allie, but really, your entire secondary, I think, is capable of. There are times they're going to be on an island. And there are just a lot of college corners who I don't know that they could survive that against this team, but I think you guys can. You certainly long enough, physical enough, and just they're able to handle themselves in those situations better than a lot of teams.
Yeah, I've got a lot of faith in our corners. Now, obviously, these guys they're talented, right? But Oklahoma State was talented. We're going to face talented receivers throughout our conference. But our 2 corners. I have all the faith, and I know Coach Gillespie and our defense does as well, all the faith in the world in those guys. And we're going to change up looks and give them different things. But, there are going to be times you're going to be on the island out there by yourself. And again, the experience that they have, the strength that they have, the length that they have, they can both run. I think that helps us. And Caleb and AG both have been really, really productive for us. And I don't expect that to change. I mean, they always step up to the challenge. They look forward to opportunities like this to really test themselves versus quality receivers. And so they're going to get opportunities obviously this Saturday, but Coach Fletch has done a great job with them. The good Lord has blessed them with a lot of talent. They're making the most of it. So I'm excited to watch them go to work this weekend.
Coach, you said earlier, you've got 5 games in. Going off of your team, where you guys stand right now in recruiting? Does some high school games have been canceled, they've been pushed back or whatever. How are you guys doing recruiting at this time right now?
Yeah, recruiting is kind of crazy right now, obviously. You didn't get to go out in the spring. You didn't get to have your camps in the summer. You can't have guys on campus right now. And so everything's off of video, off of writing letters, off of, Twitter, off of, all those text, all the things that you normally could do from that standpoint. You just, from an evaluation standpoint, it's making it a little bit more difficult. And things are kind of, in a process of, guys would like to, let's say you have a guy that might be ready to commit, but he hasn't never been to Tulsa. He's never stepped on campus. He's never seen anything. They want the opportunity to come up and see it. And you want that to happen for them, right? But until everything kind of gets worked out, you're not really having the opportunity to do that. So it's made it a little bit more difficult. And so you continue to keep building those relationships, continue to keep evaluating, and, try to make the best decision that you can off of what you have.
Going off of that, is this kind of maybe a double-edged sword where maybe, Oklahoma State up the road or Sooner down the road, they might overlook a guy that you might be able to get because they weren't even on their radar?
Yeah, that could probably happen for sure. I think that there's probably going to be a little bit more of that, maybe a guy being a little under-recruited just because he didn't have the opportunity to really get out and get in front of coaches, and coaches getting out and getting in front of teams and being able to truly evaluate a kid. So, it is kind of back and forth on that part of it. And, it can either help you or hurt you one way or the other, right? So, like I said, just trying to gather as much information as you possibly can to make a good decision.
Hey, Philip, John Hoover, good to see you again.
Hey, John, how are you?
Doing good. Hey, I'm writing a story about head coaches who also call their own plays and what kind of, unique challenges it presents to you, whether it's logistically, game planning the week. You might have to detract from your duties as an offensive coordinator because you're also the head coach, or you might have to detract from your duties as the head coach because you're also the offensive coordinator. There's only so many hours in the week. You're trying to wear two hats and do two jobs. How challenging is that? And what are some of the challenges specifically that you face with that?
Yeah, you kind of get into a mode that, you've kind of built your schedule, and I've done it now for several years, and it is challenging. I'm not going to say it's not. I've got good offensive coaches that really, really help in that sense. I mean, Coach Hill, who really is kind of our run game coordinator here, and just kind of recently kind of promoted him into that spot. And, you have to be able to delegate some things. You've got to be able to make some time to wear both hats. I think this year's probably, with all the different things that have gone on with the virus and schedule changes and all of that, it's probably been a little bit more difficult this year because of those circumstances, because things are in flux so much and can change rapidly day to day. But again, I've got a great staff, and those guys do a tremendous job, and we always do it together. And like I said, you got to be able to delegate and lean on guys when those opportunities happen.
Got you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
You too.
Coach, with regard to something you just mentioned there, how much do you concern yourself with keeping up to date on kind of the very latest on some of these COVID things, where at least it touches the football program? Like last week, I think a game was lost and there were false positive tests, you know what I mean? So kind of like the latest on testing. And I mean, are you just on a, just tell me what I absolutely need to know, or do you try and go deeper? I mean, how much, and surely you don't have that much RAM left in your brain, right? To like, I mean, how deep do you go, and how much do you keep up on, some of these things?
Well, I think you have to stay on top of it, right? Now, there's parts of that. It's not like just tell me what I need to know. And I don't want to be at the other extreme where I need to see all of it, right? I need to be somewhere in the middle because it is changing so rapidly. So, Chris Nerio, Dr. Cunningham, the people that we have on campus, we have obviously multiple meetings on this subject all the time. And as information changes, then we're all completely updated on that. But I think we've been dealing with it now for several months. The majority of the changes that have happened over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks have been pretty minor. So you've got a good feel for where you should be, what our testing procedures are going to be, what's the difference between isolation and quarantine, as you start contact tracing, how that part's going to, so you kind of wrapped your head around all of that part of it. And unless something big comes out in the near future. I think we're kind of in a pretty good mode of where we're at and kind of knowing what we got to do or what's got to happen for us to continue to keep playing. And as far as the false positive test, that's the scariest part of it, right? Is, you know, if you have a false positive, is it really false positive? And then you take another test and you know, it's just all the dynamics that happen because you initially tested positive, but now you got to prove that it's a false positive, even though you don't have any of the symptoms, but you got to prove that. And then where does that take you? And then the other side of it is, you know, you got guys in 90-day windows, right? So as you're coming out of that 90-day window, there's still a pretty good possibility that you could pop positive and really not have it because the antigens are still in you. And so what is that going to be when that happens? Are you going to go back in isolation for 10 days? And so there's still some questions when it comes to that.
What about first plane ride of the year? How does that look different at all?
There's going to be less people on it for sure. And, you know, we're going to spread out obviously as much as possible. You know, from a masking standpoint, you'll be masked up the whole time while you're on a plane. I mean, before you even get on the bus to the plane to getting off, I mean, all of those logistical things will be different. There'll be more buses than we usually take because, again, from the social distancing standpoint. And so there's things like that. Obviously, when you get into the hotel, we'll do the same thing that we did last week. You know, I was really pleased to be able to say that, you know, after playing in Oklahoma State, you know, they didn't have any positives after the game, nor did we. And so that was a really, really positive sign, I think, as we kind of finished up that game. So hopefully we'll carry that same scenario into this week.
Coach, I got another one on recruiting. With that, going off of what you said before, looking at other schools, will you be looking more into the transfer portal this year than you have in years past to get guys to fill holes because you can't evaluate high school players like you have in the past?
I mean, obviously we're looking at all options, and, you know, the transfer portal has been one of those things that over the years we've paid attention to. We've gotten several really, really high quality transfers in just the last, you know, 6 to 8 months. You know, if those opportunities still arise and we feel like this is a player that can come in and help us right now and fill a need, then we're going to go down that path. But obviously you still want to be able to continue to build your roster where you're building depth, right? And you've got to be real careful with, let's say, for instance, either you do it through the transfer portal or you do it through the JC and you kind of go really, really heavy in that direction. You're still not building for what's fixing to happen in 3 years from now or 4 years from now, because then all of a sudden you get in this mode that you're always just filling that hole the same way. And you never really be able to bring in freshmen and develop them and they become really a program type player. We've been able to do that since I've been here. And I think we're seeing some of the benefits of that as these younger kids are really maturing and now getting into their junior and senior years. And you can see as a Zaven Collins or a Caleb or AG or some of these guys that have really made significant impacts on our program, the guys that have come here and really built themselves up and really have a love and affection for what we do in our program and our university.
Corey, you know, last week, obviously with the game being, you know, postponed, canceled, you know, you guys have had that sort of one day at a time approach throughout all of this. How did that kind of help you guys, you know, accept what happened last week and just move forward?
All off season and, you know, all this year we've been preaching just being able to be, you know, ready to adapt to change. And, you know, one day at a time allows you to be able to make those changes and adapt. So this time off, well, not really time off, but this time that we've been able to, you know, refocus in and get prepared for the next opponent. So that's been really helpful.
Has that helped, especially on offense, you know, especially with all of that time that, you know, guys were out with quarantine? Has it helped to have, you know, a little bit more time to get ready for this game?
Yeah, practices are crucial, and, you know, getting, you know, a lot of things just more solidified from being able to go out there each day and practice with one another definitely helped.
Corey, having Zach finally get a bunch of practices in compared to what he had going into OSU, how has that changed the offense for you guys as well in the backfield?
Well, I mean, as far as running backs goes, it doesn't change it for us very much, you know. But you know, I'm sure there's some timing things that will be able to, you know, be really solidified. Chemistry is huge between a wide receiver and a quarterback, so I think having him back would even help with that. And you know, quarantine is what it is, and it's good to be able to get back and be able to get back into your normal tendencies.
How do you feel your role is now for this running back group? Do you feel like you're the leader of the pack? I mean, where do you stand?
You know, definitely a leader of the pack. And I don't think leader always means that you're going to always see me on the field first or you're going to see me on the field the most. But, you know, I've made it a goal of mine to help lead these guys as best as I can, give them all the knowledge that I've gained over my 4 years here. This is me going into my 5th year. So I'm very excited to be able to, you know, help them out and help cultivate their gifts and, you know, their talents as best as I can.
What have you seen so far out of UCF's line?
Their defensive line, you know, they play physical. But, you know, our guys up front are extra physical as well. I mean, whether you're talking about Tyler, CP, Couch, Gerard, you know, all those guys are so physical. And we're excited. You know, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. And I'm excited to run through the holes that they create.
How have you seen that offensive line mature since last year?
A ton. You know, an off season helps anyone, right? Getting in the weight room, being able to get stronger and faster. Our strength staff has done a great job of adapting to the circumstances and making sure that we were still able to get a lot, you know, out of our off season. So they've matured a lot physically, but also mentally. Getting Coach Hansen in, you know, we've made some adjustments and he's changed some things, but it's, you know, definitely for the better. And we're excited in the backfield to be able to run behind those guys.
Now, I know Shamari's not going to be on the field necessarily, but are you picking his brain at all because now he's getting a different perspective? Is he still there?
Yeah, you know, one of the things in the running back room, even if you're not in at any point, you know, you're always being as attentive as possible so that you can help each other out, right? We're a family inside of, as a whole, but inside of the meeting room even more. And we all want to see each other be as successful as possible. Me and Sham have had that relationship where, you know, we come off the field and we ask each other different questions for the last 4 years. And now, you know, that he's had to take kind of an extended step back, I'm still picking his brain. I mean, obviously he's a great talent and, you know, prayers for him and fast recovery. And looking forward to, you know, seeing him in the next couple of years and what he does.
Corey, it's hard to see a teammate go down, and you and Shamari about the same age, about the same year, but he's kind of always thought of you as kind of an older brother. What was your reaction to his injury, and now how do you counsel him as a guy that, you know, he's gone to a lot to get counseling, whether it was on and off the field?
You know, I was in quarantine when I heard about his injury. And, you know, I was really heartbroken. I mean, obviously I have so much love for Shamari. I'm one of his biggest fans. And, you know, as a guy who's gone through injury repeatedly before, I understand the physical and mental toll that it can take on you. So just being there to lift his spirits and letting him know, you know, Shamari is a guy with a ton of grit, and that if anyone's going to come back from an injury even stronger, it's going to be him. So I'm excited for, you know, what lies ahead of him, knowing that, you know, in these next couple of months, things may not always feel or look the best. Just keeping his eyes on the other side of that struggle.
How did you do on your test that you just took?
It was pretty good. Pretty good.
it was a physics test. So
Oh gosh, that sounds terrible. How are you feeling these days?
good, healthy. School's going good, so mentally healthy, and the body feels good. So
What was that game at Oklahoma State like for you, dealing with sounded like pretty severe cramps?
yeah, I told myself, I knew coming into it, I was kind of unprepared physically, as far as, my legs being underneath me. I was off for 2 weeks, had to go back home. So I wasn't in the right shape I needed to be to play that full game. And we knew that I was only going to get about 40 plays out of me. And I thought to myself before the game, I was kind of like, I can kind of put it on reserve and, try and last the whole game, or I can just go all out. I told myself, let's just try and, go all out and get what I can out of me and see how it is. And I ended up, right there during halfway through the third quarter, or a little less than half, I was on the far sideline, made a tackle. I stood up and I felt my right knee quiver a little bit. And I was like, well, that's not good, because I knew I was about to cramp. And then I played a few more plays with it, and with my right quad kind of cramping up on me. And then it came, and then I went to the sideline. I sat down and I locked up in both my quads. And I knew at that point, I was like, I got to get in and I got to get an IV quick. And then once we got in, it just hit me, and my whole body locked up from, head to toe. And it lasted for about an hour and a half.
What was that hour like, knowing, you weren't out there on the field, and were you watching what was going on? And what was that hour?
At first we got in there, and like I said, I sat there for a little bit, and I thought, because this has happened before, and I was like, okay, let's get 2 IV bags, and let's get back out there. And we got to 2 IV bags, and it was just still getting worse. And we got to 3, and I was like, once I got to 4 bags, I was like, all right, we'll call it. I was like, I'm done. So at that point, I'm just putting not only myself at jeopardy, but, if I'm not 100, I'd rather have a guy out there that is 100 than me. So.
You said, you knew you were going to probably be limited in that game, so you went all out. I mean, that's really going all out the way you played, especially in the first half. Looking back at that film, what was that like to watch that half, to see the plays you made?
Yeah, during the half, I didn't really think about it. I just went out there and played, and I was so zoned in. That's kind of like what I just focused on, was, doing my job, and then being a football player. Once I did my job of understanding the defense well, understanding what I can and can't do. And after the game, I seen the stats, and I was like, well, that was kind of a shock. Yeah. So it kind of surprised me, but, I can't, but I got to, the 3 sacks I got, they're not just because I was unreal. I mean, I got 3 guys up front in front of me taking on double teams all day long. If they weren't getting double teamed, they'd have a guy climbing to me. But if they're not double teaming them, then I come free. Or if they're singled up with them, one of those guys are going to come free because they're so good up front. So I got to give thanks to them.
Is that just an example of how well this defense can play when everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. We had it in our minds that we were really aggravated by the way we came out last year against Oklahoma State, and how, right out the gate, he busts one for 75 yards, 80 yards. And then we were like, well, we can't start slow. We got to, because we're kind of, last year, I'd say we were kind of, do we belong on the field with these guys? Are we good enough to play at this level? And that's, of course we are, So that's kind of like what we came out. We told ourselves, let's just go. It's just like another game for us. Let's go play. I don't care what stadium we're in. Let's just go play. So that's kind of where we stood at with our mind going into the game.
Is it difficult for you guys on defense to generate momentum when the schedule is what it is, when you don't have games in consecutive weeks and all of that?
It's not hard to generate momentum. We just, as a defense, I feel like we're pretty good at flipping that switch and getting after it. We have a lot of good energy on the team, as you can tell with Allie Green. A lot of the corners bring a lot of energy. The D-line brings a lot of energy. The linebackers do. So I think we're pretty good all around the board. C-Will brings a lot of energy, as you can tell with his play and how they celebrate after just, a single tackle, because that tackle is crucial on, if it's third and short and we tackle them for loss. So that gives our offense the opportunity to go out there and, make a play and potentially score.
Hey, where'd you get that hat?
Bookstore. They're on sale, $3.99.
No way.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll get your memo after we're done. I'll send you $5 and go buy me one of those hats. So how do you feel? I asked Coach Montgomery about Zach getting more practice time since he was in quarantine. And then for you, how has this been being able to get a little bit more practice time going into this next game?
Oh, it feels unreal, because going out to Oklahoma State, we had 2 days and, they had the week off before. So they changed those 2 days that we got to come back and practice to a what we call Thursday practice, which is not a full practice. We don't get to go against the good on good. So I didn't get to tackle no one until we got into Oklahoma State game. I didn't really get to work on someone who's running full speed, trying to make me miss, and they play at a Division I level. I mean, when I mean play is like they're out there playing on the field. We get that whenever we play good on good against our offense, and me and Zach didn't get that. And I'm sure it was kind of a struggle for Zach too, because he wasn't throwing against DBs that are, he's throwing against scout DBs that maybe have not seen the field during a real game, and the speed of the game is way different than it is in the scout practice, as you know. So that's kind of where I think we struggled. But we coming into this week, we've got to practice 2 weeks, so we should be ready to go.
We always talk about how fall camp can be a drag, and you're just looking forward to playing someone other than yourself. In this season, in the COVID era, I guess, is it almost somewhat more beneficial for you guys to be able to get some of those practices back that you missed from fall camp, or are you still guys in the mindset we just want to go out and play? It doesn't matter how many practices we get?
Yeah, I think it's just in the mindset, as long as you're healthy, as long as we're, being smart, and our coaches are really smart with us, and they know what our bodies are at. And, of course you can't practice one time a week and then go out and play a game, but if we do get a few practices in, I think that, especially padded practices, if we miss a Thursday, we're not in shoulder pads, we're just in helmet and like a spider gear. So that's really not as important as, getting those 2 solid days in of good practice. So, but we still stand with the standpoint of just, we get a few practices in, let's go play. Let's just, get out there and be able to play. But yeah, that's how we feel.
Zaven, not sure what the rules are in quarantine, but I had heard that you and Zach, of course, you're good friends, worked out a little bit together to try to stay in shape during that period of time. And if so, did you run patterns for him, and did he let you tackle him?
No, he didn't let me tackle him. So that was the big thing. We definitely, and I wasn't out there running full speed, but we definitely helped each other work on stuff. I worked mostly on just shuffling, and I ran kind of walk through routes, just letting him throw the ball, down the field and throwing it at full speed. Quarantine was definitely hard to work out because you're limited as what you can do, where you can be, who you can be around. So, and it's hard to go to somewhere, especially back to home, whenever I don't have a personal gym, and trying to tell people, hey, can we use this workout facility? And they're like, well, why aren't you working out too? And you say, oh, okay, I'm quarantined. Well, no, you cannot use our workout facility then. So that's kind of as far as working out, in quarantine's pretty tough. But yeah, we helped each other as much as we could during that.
Anything else for Zaven?
Zaven, what do you take from last year's UCF game coming into this year's game?
Just got to make them one-dimensional. Their quarterback does a really good job of getting that ball out quick, and they average, I think last game, 9 seconds between snaps, just boom, boom, boom. We're talking about 9 seconds. That's Usain Bolt running 100 meters. So it's quick. Like they're getting that ball off quick, and we averaged, I think we had 90 snaps against them last year. So as we keep that snap count low, then we'll be good. Keep the ball in our offensive hands. Don't let them get momentum in drives and slow them down, make them one-dimensional. That's pretty much what we need to do.